Colorado's Republicans have relatively little political power, yet they're flexing influence over pandemic policy. Speaking of, the elected representative who accused Colorado's top health official of a crime says he does not have proof. The best table inside a restaurant isn't. The plan to take over streets, sidewalks, and parking lots so that people can eat at a distance. A nurse who offered to work inside a jail at one of America's COVID hotspots is now home, ready to go back to his other job, making laws. And there ain't no law against a rolling concert. Buckle up. This is next. Colorado's governor is seeing his first significant challenge to his emergency orders, a lawsuit trying to stop Democratic Governor Jared Polis from allowing petition signature gathering online and through the mail. Of all things, that's the one. Our Steve Steger looks at the wealthy interest group that's taking a stand.
Not very often when an attorney is challenging someone in court do you hear something like this.
I don't want to get into questioning his motives.
But Chris Murray says he believes Democratic Governor Jared Polis is trying to do what he feels is best with an executive order allowing signatures for petitions to be collected online or through the mail, doing away with the requirement that you have to do it face-to-face.
It's about the right of the people to petition to place something on the ballot.
Our issue is not with what his motivations are, it's with what he's actually doing to try and satisfy those motivations.
Murray is the attorney suing Polis on behalf of Colorado Concern, a group of business leaders. His argument, the state constitution requires signatures to be gathered face-to-face. Polis's emergency powers give him the ability to suspend a state statute if the law would in any way prevent, hinder, or delay necessary actions in coping with an emergency. Murray argues in-person signature gathering doesn't, if the circulators wear masks or have some kind of physical barrier.
We interact face-to-face all the time, and we have since the middle of March. When we go to the grocery store and we sign a receipt.
It would be very convenient for a governor to shut down the initiative process and say, sorry folks, I'm going to take all the power and not let the people have it. I think what's most important, though, is we don't let our democracy be a casualty of this pandemic.
This is certainly the biggest test of Polis's emergency power, and it's the only real substantive challenge to it we've seen. Murray says taking him to court is really all you can do.
If you don't think that the governor has the authority to do something, that's really the only way to try and check his authority.
So you might be asking yourself, why is a group of business leaders suing the state over signature gathering? Murray says it's not about one single initiative here, but that lawsuit lists two that would adversely affect Dan Ritchie, the former DU chancellor and former CEO of Westinghouse. One is a paid leave plan, which would impact his charity that he runs. The other, a graduated income tax initiative that's gathering signatures, Kyle, which would lead to him paying more income tax.
Because he has to prove standing, he has to prove some kind of personal harm in order to be able to go after the governor in court.
Absolutely. He's one of the listed plaintiffs in this. It's Dan Ritchie and this group of business leaders that are suing the state of Colorado.
All right. Steve Steger, thank you very much. Relatively small groups making a whole lot of noise have had an outsized voice in Colorado's pandemic politics and policy these days. You've seen their rallies at the state capitol, a couple of businesses that got a lot of attention for defying public health orders. But yet a majority of Coloradans have stayed home. Polling finds strong support for public health restrictions. Yet Colorado Republicans, with their least amount of political power that they've held here in 90 years, are trying to drive the discussion. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger asked them what they want next.
Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
This may have been the tamest rally yet to reopen Colorado. Sunday, it was a group on motorcycles circling the Capitol. Last week, it was taping money to a now shut down Castle Rock Cafe that defied orders not allowing dine-in service. Today, it's Republican lawmakers calling for legislation to give lawmakers more power in the decisions made during an emergency.
Today, we're saying that we are not trying to be just contrarian. We're actually trying to be a part of the solution.
Republican Minority Leader Patrick Neville has been a vocal defender of businesses shut down, like the appliance factory Mattress Kingdom that was briefly closed in Denver for not following guidelines for in-person business, and the cafe in Castle Rock. As a lawmaker, he wants a say in the emergency rules that shut those businesses down, rules enforced by an unelected public county health department.
I think it's okay to make these quick and brief if you have to react quickly in emergency, but over a certain amount of period of time, the elected officials should have to weigh in on this.
We want reasonable limits on a governor's ability to shut down the economy and distribute hundreds of millions of dollars, federal dollars, and force us to change the way we live.
On the east steps of the Capitol, the Republicans were split, the masks and the mask nots. Republican Dave Williams wore a mask, just not for this interview.
When people want to wear masks, they should wear masks. Sometimes I wear them, sometimes I don't. Typically, I'm wearing them for other people's sake.
Over the last month, there's been a distinct line. Democrats holding news conferences defending the state's emergency rules, Republicans questioning the Democrats' delay in restarting the legislature. I asked Williams if Republicans are just taking the opposing view because they're the opposing party.
No, I don't think any of us are saying these things just to win over a vote or score political points.
The Republicans did have a platform they wanted to present on the steps of the Capitol today. One of the ideas they want is to protect a property tax exemption for seniors. Another idea is to limit or prevent businesses from paying a higher unemployment premium when that fund goes broke next month. And as Colorado law has it, they will most likely pay more, the businesses will, Kyle, once that fund goes broke. But any bill that's going to cost the state money is probably dead on arrival.
Sure. And Marshall, as we've talked about, the state's political demographics have been moving away from Republicans for a number of years now. But this event, this pandemic, has the ability to kind of scramble things up and at least create openings for new conversations.
Yeah, and you saw that there's a group of Republicans that sometimes don't see eye to eye that were hanging out at the Capitol today. I'll give one example, Senator Jack Tate. He hasn't necessarily had a problem with the beginning acts of Governor Jared Polis. He was hanging out on the sidelines, and he said he didn't have an issue with where we were, but now as we're weeks later, he may rejoin that fold.
All right, Marshall Zellinger, thank you so much. Another political story that we want to bring you an update on, the Republican state representative who wants criminal charges brought against the top health official in Colorado said today that he does not have any proof to back up his allegations. We caught up with Representative Mark Baisley of Roxborough Park at the Capitol today. It was late last week when he accused CDPHE Director Jill Ryan of falsifying death certificates. But all Baisley can point to is a months-old letter from a senior care home in Centennial that felt like its doctors have been overruled by the state in determining causes of death.
I'm not out for someone to go to prison. I'm out for this to be corrected. I'm out for truth. So if this was a crime being committed kind of unknowingly, that they didn't know that this was a crime, all right, let's just correct this, go back, change those death certificates and respect the families.
On Friday, the state announced that it's changing the way reports of COVID-19 are given to the public. The Centers for Disease Control told the states to report in a death if that person tested positive with COVID or likely had COVID. So now Colorado's going to separate into two categories, reporting separate numbers of those who died from COVID-19 and those who died with COVID-19. Great news on the number of hospitalizations from the virus in our state. 460 Coloradans are in the hospital right now. You can see that number trending downward steadily. 42 patients have been discharged or transferred in the last day. Testing, not so hot. We continue to bounce along at a daily rate that is under the state's goal of 5,000 tests a day. It's been hovering around 3,500 a day, jumped up to 4,500 over the weekend.
That's it, right? That's it. Very simple. Takes 10 seconds. Feels like, feels like a little tickle.
The governor said it felt like a little tickle. His face suggested that it felt like a little more than a little tickle. A demonstration by the gov as he announced that Colorado has enough tests for every symptomatic person who wants one. Apart from getting his brain poked on live television, the governor also today hinted at how restaurants will reopen in our state. We've talked about how a lot of places have said they can't make it on 30 or 50% capacity if that's all they're allowed. Polis said that restaurants are going to need permission from cities and counties, but they should prepare to reopen with expanded outdoor seating on sidewalks, streets, and parking lots.
That's really the only way with the spacing that we're going to have a thriving restaurant environment for the coming months. Thankfully, Colorado has wonderful summer weather. 9 out of 10 days in summer are terrific for outdoor dining. With the reduced dining capacity in the actual facility because of the way the airflow works and how contagious it is, the way that restaurants can get to 100% capacity, even 150%, is by spreading out in their parking lot, their streets, the sidewalk.
The governor says the state will waive every rule and regulation possible in order to allow outdoor dining, including the law against serving alcohol on the streets. Look for the state's formal announcement on restaurant reopenings a week from today. So, it's going to be up to individual municipalities and even individual neighborhoods to work out the small details of outdoor dining in our streets and in parking lots. This is going to take some compromise and some creativity. And to that I say good. Because otherwise we are left with this anti-science nonsense that it is either all or nothing when it comes to reopening. That opening has to look like everybody crowded in together, swapping respiratory droplets, protected only by their belief in freedom. I predict this is also going to create some tough but useful conversations about the one thing Americans love most: free parking. The ability to drive whenever, wherever, and find an open parking spot just waiting for your arrival. Turning over streets and parking lots is going to challenge the way a lot of our places function. But maybe, like so much of the rest of this pandemic, the reset will allow us to see these places in new ways. An elected official from Colorado elected to go work in a COVID-19 hotspot. He's home and ready to share what he saw. Band on the run. Roll.
You know, live experience, I guess it just reaches you at different levels, you know?
This is different on a couple of levels. Next. President Trump said last year that he was building a wall in Colorado, which really would have showed New Mexico once and for all. That wall never happened. Now the state Republican Party is showing off its own wall. 200-plus posters and signs built along I-70 in Mesa County. Mesa County has reopened with the state's permission, and nothing says we're open like a...
A few high clouds approaching Colorado from the northwest, but this dominant ridge of high pressure brought temperatures way above the average of 72. How about 88 today? And we could go close to 90 again tomorrow. 90 would be a record high on Tuesday. But the storm off to the west changes things for us midweek, bringing you more moisture for afternoon thunderstorms, but not tonight. Fair skies, windy and mild, low 53. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, early, partly cloudy by the afternoon. A gusty late day storm possible with the high in record territory. A nice day Wednesday, a cooler day Thursday. Friday and Saturday look great, but thunder showers are back in the forecast for Sunday and for Monday, Memorial Day.
You cannot turn on the TV news these days without seeing a parade for a birthday or a parade for a graduation, and those are nice and all. But how about a socially distanced celebration to replace all the 21st birthday bar crawls that can't happen these days?
You can't come to the bar. We thought we'd bring the bar to you. Happy birthday, buddy. Everybody join us in singing
A beer parade. Now that is what I'm talking about. Dry Dock Brewing led the convoy to Jesse's house in Aurora over the weekend, dropped off some beer to celebrate his 21st after his dad reached out to the brewery to ask if they could put together something special. Grandma even made it to the parade, 83 years old, brought the mask and the gloves and everything. Hey, listen, last chance to get in a shout out to the graduate in your family, or if you are a graduate, last chance to tell somebody who helped you get where you are today. Friday is our big virtual graduation ceremony for high schoolers and college grads and so forth. So parents, send us video messages for your grads. next@9news.com is the email. Grads, send us a message for a teacher or professor or the parent. Made all the difference in the world. You can use the hashtag HeyNext or hit that email as well.
If I don't sign up or if I don't do this, then why did I become a nurse in the first place?
A nurse from Colorado puts his body where his mouth is, volunteering to work in a jail during the pandemic. Oh, did I mention he's an elected state representative? That's next. Colorado's legislature was out of session for a few weeks. Some of those lawmakers were at home. Representative Kyle Mullica was in jail. He asked to be there. The Democrat from North Glen offered to use his skills as a nurse at the Cook County Jail in Chicago. He talked to us after returning home over the weekend.
I've been a registered nurse around 3 years, working in the medical field a little over 6 years. I was an EMT before I became a nurse. I love the camaraderie of working in the ER. you really have no idea what's going to come in, and really just helping people in their most difficult time. The day after session went into pause. I was back in the ER working, but we weren't seeing as many patients, and so talked to my wife about opportunities, and this opportunity became available. Chicago's definitely been hit harder than Denver has, and specifically where I signed up to go, Cook County Jail. And so I decided that I wanted to take this opportunity to use the skill set that I had to go help people. We have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And we talked to them about that when you have the opportunity to help somebody, that you need to help them. And I feel like, you know, as a dad, I need to walk that walk. It was an environment that I've never been in before, working in the correctional facility, and it was difficult. You know, they obviously have been really hard hit. I've never worked this much in my life in a row. You know, working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. That's a lot. We would be monitoring patients that tested positive for COVID. We would be monitoring patients who had come in contact with those in the ER. I may have 4 or 5 patients at a time. There, you know, we would have, they call them tiers or pods of patients, and there may be 20, 30, 40 positive COVID patients in that pod. I got back Saturday night, have had no symptoms, and so didn't have to do any quarantine. I became a nurse because I wanted to help people. This is exactly why I became a nurse. You know, was for a situation like this.
Appreciation to Representative Mullica and all of those folks in healthcare who have chosen to run toward the danger. Mullica told us that he's closely monitoring his own health and that he was given access to PPE every day that he was working in Chicago. He will soon be back to work at another one of his jobs at Presbyterian St. Luke's once the legislative session is over. You cannot crowd the stage if the stage keeps moving. A musician's idea to bring a concert to his town. It's the most Colorado thing we saw today. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is having a concert come to people who can't go to a concert. Folks in Lyons heard the music getting closer and closer and looked out their window, and there it was. It was a band on stage on a trailer bed being hauled down the street. Joe Kukla and his band were towed through Lyons on Sunday, slowly enough that people could enjoy a song or two. They'd stop, they'd play a while, they'd move a little bit farther down the road. Went about a mile in 3 hours. People got a chance to hear a concert on their front doorsteps. Joe said the idea came to them because they had previously played some parades. They're going to do it again next weekend. Feedback from Herschel tonight, who says, Kyle, why are your hands so orange? I don't know about you, Herschel, but I'm getting a lot of sun these days. Great weekend, working in the yard. It's not as simple as Orange Man Bad. See you next time.